Welcome back to The Lunch Bunch, and I am Jill Norrie. Today we are going to read Chapter 4, and that is called September, the Meeting. Hurry, hurry! I have something of the utmost importance to share, Frances shouted. Run, kids, she ordered. Frances waited impatiently for the members of the Lunch Bunch to join her at the recess meeting. She was bursting with news to share with her friends. When they all had finally arrived, Frances called the meeting to order. This is such an important meeting, and correct protocol must be followed, she began. I will call out attendance, and you will answer by saying, present. Pooja, present. Ashley, present. Brandon, present. Andrew, present. Matthew. Matthew! Mister, we can't continue until you answer. Matthew, with an eye roll and a groan, he complied, present. Frances paced back and forth with her hands on her hips. I was incredibly bored when we moved to town this summer, so my mummy signed me up for a summer reading program at the Mountain Creek Public Library, said Frances. She took her lecturing stance, legs wide apart, flailing arms, and she began. Remember, I have been reading since I was 2 3/4. The librarian, Mrs. Dewberry, introduced me to a book series called Encyclopedia Brown, and the first book, Encyclopedia Brown, Boy Detective, caught my attention. While discussing the book with my family over tea, I shared with them my interest in doing spy work like Encyclopedia Brown. My daddy told me about the most famous spy of all time, James Bond. He was an agent that worked for MI6 in London. MI6 stands for Military Intelligence Section 6. We, the Lunch Bunch, are going to become secret spy agents. Our organization will be called LB6, Lunch Bunch 6 for the 6 members of the Lunch Bunch. My daddy told me that each agent had their very own number, and James Bond, the best spy in the world, was number 007. I'll assign each of us an official secret spy agent number from 001 to 006. Who gets to be 001, Frances? Matthew asked. Actually, me, Matthew. She replied, it was my idea and I will be 001. There didn't seem to be much point arguing with Frances once her mind was made up. She assigned the team the following numbers. Frances, 001, Matthew, 002, Pooja, 003, Brandon, 004, Ashley, 005, and Andrew, 006. Congratulations, agents. LB6 is an official secret spy organization, and we have a situation to solve right now. Did anyone have any luck breaking the secret code? Frances asked. Ashley and Brandon shook their heads and reported they had no luck in solving it. Did you ask your parents for the solution? Wondered Ashley. Frances said it was odd that her parents said they didn't put the message in her backpack and had no clue what it said. Who put the message in her backpack? Matthew chirped at Andrew. Did you see that I am higher up the ranks of LB6 than you, Andrew? Clearly, 002 outranks 006 any day. Maybe so, Matthew, but I'm far closer in rank to the one and only James Bond, 007, boasted Andrew. What does this even mean, Brandon? Ashley said. Brandon replied honestly, I have no idea. In fact, I never know what Frances is talking about. I just want to go run. We will meet every Monday at the lunch recess to do spy work debriefing, said Frances. The meetings are not optional. Agents, you are dismissed. The Kindie scattered to their favorite recess activities. Leroy intently read his book and occasionally looked over at what seemed to be a meeting of a small group of Frances and her buddies. He wondered what they could be meeting about, but couldn't make out their words, so went back to reading his book. Since none of the Lunch Bunch had any luck solving the first mystery code, Frances decided she would ask the town librarian, Mrs. Dewberry, for a book on breaking codes the next time she went in. At the library, Frances asked Mrs. Dewberry if she could find a book about codes. Frances didn't want to explain to the librarian that she didn't think her mommy and daddy actually gave her the note, but had no other explanation. She fibbed and said, my mommy and daddy sent me a note that challenged me. I'm having a devil of a time getting started on it. Give me a few minutes, Frances, and I will have a quick look to see what I can find, Mrs. Dewberry explained. Frances was more than happy to browse the library and look for a couple of new books to take home. By the time she returned to the front counter, Mrs. Dewberry had a book as well as some information from one of the sets of encyclopedias in the research section of the town library. The book was called Codes, Ciphers, and Secret Writing and was published October 1st, 1984, and written by Martin Gardner. The information from the encyclopedia answered the question, what is the most common secret code? The Caesar shift is one of the most common and easiest ciphers to use and is even still used today. It works by simply moving a set of number of letters down the alphabet. Caesar's preferred amount was 3 letters to the left, making his name Julius become MXOLXV, Mrs. Dewberry explained. Thank you, Mrs. Dewberry. This will be most helpful in showing me how to break the code my parents gave me, said Frances. With that, she left the library with her research on codes and reading material for the week. Frances couldn't wait to pass on the information to the lunch bunch. The very next day at school, Frances corralled Ashley and Brandon in the boot room. The librarian, Mrs. Dewberry, gave me some information on how to break secret codes. She passed on the information about moving the numbers down the alphabet, a certain number of spaces. Well, let me work on this, Frances, Brandon said proudly. My family loves puzzles, and I will see what I can find out. Frances left the crumpled note with the unsolved code in the capable hands of Brandon, she hoped. Before school, early on Monday morning, as the lunch bunch agents individually arrived, Ashley and Brandon called them over to the playground. We need to call an emergency meeting, said Ashley excitedly. I can't wait until lunch recess. We need to talk to you all now. They would not start the meeting until everybody arrived at school. Cross your fingers that Matthew and Andrew are not late today, Ashley said to the group. This is news that needs to be shared with all of us. When the brothers finally arrived, Ashley and Brandon looked like they were going to explode. We broke the code! We broke the code! Ashley shouted. Brandon shushed her and quietly explained. We had a play date on the weekend and we were talking about what would make sense. We used the Caesar shift. Ashley was assigned ABC plus 6 to the right. Do you get it? For LB6? I took ABC plus 6 to the left. We decided it must be a sign, so we worked on the code over the weekend. They started with the beginning word and would compare notes to see if anything made sense. Brandon's first word was IGT, and it came up with gibberish. Ashley's first word was IGT, and it came up with can. They continued working on the puzzle together using Ashley's formula and came up with, can you break the secret code? Why would your parents put a note in your backpack? Matthew asked Frances. Again, Frances confirmed, I don't think it was the work of Mommy and Daddy. It seems so unlike them. When I asked them what the purpose of the note was, they looked genuinely surprised and assured me that the message did not come from them. Matthew quietly said, I found a mystery note in my backpack yesterday morning. Suddenly, the lunch bunch came alive with questions. Who put it there? Can we have a look? Do you think we can solve this one too? Matthew just passed the coded message to Frances and shrugged his shoulders. Again, in small, fancy squiggles, was the word Matthew. The tiny word on the back was missed by Frances as she passed the note to Ashley and Brandon, who promised They would have a look at it and see if it followed the code of the first message. When the lunch bunch next met, Ashley announced that the code used was the same as the first message. The decoded message didn't take her long to decipher. You are the 6 chosen spy agents. The lunch bunch agents were shocked. We are the 6 chosen secret spy agents? Who chose us? Wondered Andrew. And what are we chosen to do? They presented way more questions. This presented way more questions than answers. Pooja was next to receive a note, like the other 2 messages. Hers had a small cursive word, Pooja, written on the back. Pooja told the lunch bunch crew, "We have a problem, a solution, and a second problem." With Ashley's help, the first problem of decoding the message was not difficult. We have the solution ready to share with you, but the second problem is I haven't a clue what it means. Look for the blueprints of the school. Ashley told the group, we need to start looking for whoever is putting the notes in our backpacks, and maybe we can ask questions about what the notes mean. Nobody could come up with anything out of the ordinary to indicate who was delivering the notes. Wait, Brandon told the group. I think I know what Pooja's message means. When my family was building a shed for our backyard last summer, the plan that Dad used was called a blueprint. My dad told me about following the blueprints and getting the measurements correct to make sure the project worked out. I was the assistant carpenter to my dad for the shed project, and I think I could read a blueprint. Well, where would we find the blueprints of the school? Andrew wondered. Francis chimed in. Any questions I have for information, I go to the expert, Mrs. Dewberry at the local library. She knows where to find anything. Andrew said loudly and firmly, I think it is very important that we keep the codes to ourselves until we find out more about them. Can we promise to keep them a secret? Say yes if you agree. Francis, 001, yes. Matthew, 002, I'm not sure. Matthew, wrong answer. Matthew, 002, okay. Pooja, 003, yes. Brandon, 004, yes. Ashley, 005, yes. Then the secret is safe with the lunch bunch. Frances promised her friend she would ask her mommy to take her to the library as soon as she could. Her parents were very supportive of her love of reading, and they would make time to get her to the library, although Frances was not upfront with them about the research she was taking on. Thank you for spending time with the Lunch Bunch.